My name is Cynthia Smith. I'm 23 years old, and until my sister's wedding day, I thought there was still a small place for me inside my family. Not a big place, not the kind of place people saved in the front row or mentioned during speeches. Just a place. A chair somewhere near the aisle. A few minutes with my sister before she walked out. Maybe one photograph where I did not have to stand on the edge like someone who had wandered into the wrong room. I drove 9 hours for that chance. 9 hours in the same navy dress I had picked because it was simple enough not to draw attention, but nice enough that no one could say I had not tried. 9 hours with a garment bag across my back seat, a pair of low heels on the passenger floor, and a small velvet pouch tucked inside my purse. That pouch mattered more than the dress, more than the flowers, more than the seating chart. But no one knew that yet. When I reached the venue, my mother was already standing near the front entrance. That was the first thing that felt wrong. She was not inside helping my sister. She was not greeting guests with my stepfather. She was not fussing over the photographer or checking the timeline, which was what she usually did when there was a room full of people to impress. She was waiting for me. She smiled before I got close enough to speak. Not a warm smile. A public smile. The kind of smile that told anyone watching that nothing unpleasant was happening. "Cynthia," she said softly, "I need you to be reasonable." I stopped with one hand on the strap of my purse. Behind her, the front doors were open. I could see wheat flowers on tall stands, a welcome sign with my sister's name written in gold, and guests moving through the lobby with little glasses of champagne. For a second, I thought maybe there had been a problem with the seating. Maybe she needed me to help with something. Maybe my sister was crying in the bridal room and had asked for me. I said, "Is Emma okay?" My mother's face barely changed. "She's fine. But she doesn't want any tension today." I remember the word tension, not anger, not drama, not conflict, tension, a word vague enough to blame on whoever was standing closest. I looked past her toward the doors. "I'm here for the ceremony. I know." She glanced over her shoulder, then lowered her voice. "But you can't come inside." I did not answer right away. Sometimes, when someone says something cruel very calmly, your mind takes a few seconds to accept that you heard it correctly. "What? You can watch from outside," she said. There was a small pause after that, like she expected me to be grateful for the option. Then she added the part I could not stop hearing afterward. "Your sister doesn't want you in the photos." I looked at her. I did not cry. I did not raise my voice. I did not ask her how she could say that after I had driven since before sunrise, after I had taken time off work, after I had spent the whole night before steaming a dress in a motel bathroom because the iron left water spots. I only asked, "Did Emma say that?" My mother's eyes shifted for less than a second. That was all. "She has enough on her plate," she said. "Don't make her be the bad guy." Behind her, someone laughed inside the venue, a bright, easy laugh. The kind of laugh people have when they are already where they belong. I stood there, holding my purse, feeling the little velvet pouch press against my side through the fabric. I had brought my sister something from our father, something he had left for her before he died, something I had protected for years. And my mother was standing between me and the door, telling me my sister did not want me visible. A woman with a headset came over after a minute. She looked uncomfortable before she even reached us. "Mrs. Smith," she said to my mother, "the photographer is asking about immediate family." My mother did not look away from me. Cynthia was just leaving. The woman's eyes flicked toward me, then down at her clipboard. I saw it then. My name was not there, not crossed out, not moved, not misspelled, absent. That hurt more than I expected. Not because of a chair, not because of a plate of food, because someone had taken the time to make sure there was no practical evidence I had ever been invited. My mother stepped closer. "Please don't do this here." That sentence did something strange to me, because I was not doing anything. I was standing still. She was the one blocking a door. But I had learned a long time ago that in my family, my reaction was always treated as the problem, never the thing I was reacting to. So I nodded once. I stepped back. I walked away from the entrance without giving my mother the scene she seemed ready to use. I went around the side of the building and sat on a low stone wall beside the parking lot. The music started about 15 minutes later, muffled strings at first, then chairs scraping. Then applause. Then the kind of soft, swelling melody people choose when they want a moment to feel timeless. I could hear my sister's wedding through the wall, not see it, not be part of it, hear it. I sat there with my hands folded in my lap, dressed for a family photograph I had been removed from, listening to people celebrate 10 feet away from me. And then, just as the music shifted, the side door opened. At first, I thought it was a server. Then I saw the white dress. My sister stood in the doorway with her bouquet in one hand and confusion all over her face. She looked at me, then at my mother, who had appeared behind her so quickly it was clear she had followed her. For a moment, nobody spoke. Emma looked down at my hands, at the small velvet pouch resting against my palm. The color drained from my mother's face. My sister whispered, "Cynthia?" Then she looked at Mom and dropped her bouquet. The flowers hit the concrete with a soft, ugly sound. No one moved. Even the music behind her seemed too loud suddenly. Before I tell you what was inside that pouch, and why my mother looked like the floor had opened underneath her, please hit like and subscribe. Stay with me, because this was not really about wedding photos. It was not even just about being left outside. It started years earlier, with my father, a lake house, and a promise I had kept so quietly that almost everyone forgot I was keeping it. Now, let me take you back. Before there was a wedding venue, before there was a seating chart with my name missing from it, before my mother learned how to turn silence into a family rule, there was a small lake house with peeling blue shutters and a porch that always smelled like rain. That is where I remember my father best, not in the hospital bed, not in the suit from the funeral program, at the lake house. He would stand barefoot in the kitchen on Saturday mornings, making pancakes that were always too dark around the edges, humming old songs under his breath like he did not realize anyone could hear him. Emma used to sit on the counter beside the sink, swinging her legs and stealing blueberries from the bowl. She was 6 then, maybe 7. Small enough that Dad still called her Button, because he said she had come into the world tiny and stubborn and impossible to ignore. I was older, old enough to know where the extra paper towels were kept, old enough to rinse dishes without being asked, old enough to notice when Mom's voice went sharp in the other room and Dad's went quiet in response. That was my role early. I noticed things. I noticed when Mom rearranged flowers after Dad had already set the table, because as she put it, people can tell when no one cares about presentation. I noticed how she corrected our clothes before family pictures, tugging collars straight and smoothing hair until our smiles got stiff. I noticed how Dad never argued in front of us. He would just give me a look sometimes, a tired little half-smile, and say, "Come on, Cynthia. Help me with the cooler." Then we would go outside. He never said much during those moments. He did not have to. The screen door would slap shut behind us, and the air near the lake would feel different. Cooler. Quieter, like the house itself was exhaling. The lake house was not quiet in the way people usually mean quiet. There were always sounds. The refrigerator clicked too loudly at night. The pipes knocked when someone turned on the shower. The porch boards complained under every step. Cicadas screamed from the trees in August like they were trying to warn us about something. But it was still the quietest place I knew, because inside that house, my father did not have to explain himself as much. And I did not have to watch every adult's face quite so carefully. I remember one afternoon after we carried the cooler outside. Dad set it down near the porch steps and just stood there for a second, looking toward the water. He had a dish towel over one shoulder. There was pancake batter on his wrist. From inside, Mom was still moving things around on the table, not cleaning exactly, adjusting. She did that a lot. She adjusted the world until it looked like something you can approve of. Dad looked at me and said, "Your mother means well." I nodded because that was what I usually did. I was probably 11, maybe 12, old enough to know adults said things like that when they wanted a child to accept something uncomfortable without asking questions. Then Emma came running outside with her hair half brushed and syrup on her chin. "Dad, Mom says I have to wear the yellow dress for pictures." Dad smiled. "That's a nice dress. It itches. Then we'll take the picture fast." Emma looked at me like I could fix it. So I went back inside, found the white cardigan Mom wanted her to wear over it, and shook it out before handing it to her. I told Emma, "Put it on for the picture, then take it off after." She accepted that. Emma usually did if I made the solution sound simple. That was one of the first things I learned how to do. Make things sound simple, even when they were not. Mom wanted family pictures every time we went to the lake house. She said it was because memories mattered. But memories, to her, needed good lighting and brushed hair, and no one squinting. Dad used to stand at the edge of those photos with one arm around Mom and one hand resting on Emma's shoulder. I usually stood on the other side, holding whatever sweater or bag or hairbrush someone had handed me right before the timer started. I did not mind at first. There was a kind of pride in being useful. But sometimes, when Mom looked at the picture afterward, she would say, "Cynthia, you should have smiled more naturally." And Dad would say, "She looks fine. She looks tense." That word again. Tense. Back then, I thought it meant my face was wrong. I did not understand yet that some people call you tense when you are the only one reacting honestly to the room. Dad had one small ritual after family pictures. He would take off his suit jacket if he had worn one, loosen his sleeves, and remove his cufflinks. Even at the lake house, if Mom wanted a formal photo, he wore them. They were silver, rectangular, plain mostly. I liked how small they were. They did not ask for attention. They just held things together. He kept them in a little blue dish near his watch when we were home, but at the lake house he wrapped them in a handkerchief and tucked them into the top drawer of the old dresser in the main bedroom. Once Emma tried to play with them. She was maybe 8. She thought they were earrings for dolls. Mom snapped, "Those are not toys." Emma froze. Dad came in from the hall and saw her little hand still open, one cufflink shining in her palm. "It's okay," he said. Mom said, "She needs to learn not to touch things that matter." Dad took the cufflink gently from Emma and crouched down. "They do matter," he said, "but not because they're expensive." Emma wiped her nose with the back of her hand. "Then why?" He looked at me for a second before answering. "Because I wore them the day I married your mom, and the day both of you were baptized. And every day I wanted to remember I belonged to something." I remember that because it was the first time I heard belonging described like something you could carry. Not a place, not a person, a small object in your hand. After that, I never touched those cufflinks without permission. But I watched them. I watched Dad fasten them when we had church or weddings or formal dinners Mom said we could not be late to. I watched him check his sleeves in the mirror, then look at us through the reflection. Sometimes he caught my eye, sometimes he winked. Small things like that can keep a child standing for a long time. Emma was different with him. She climbed him like furniture when she was little. She fell asleep against his side during movies. She asked questions without measuring whether they were safe first. I loved that about her. I also protected it. When Mom was set, I could usually tell before Emma could. Mom's voice got cleaner. That was the best way I can describe it. Every word became smooth and sharp at the same time. "Emma, sweetheart, don't run. Emma, fix your hair. Emma, we don't act like that when people are watching." If Emma missed the warning, I stepped in. I tied the ribbon. I found the shoes. I wiped the syrup. I said, "Come on, let's go outside," and most of the time Emma came. I used to think that made me important. Later, I realized it made me convenient. But back then, I was just proud when Dad noticed. One evening, after a long day on the water, Mom went into town for groceries and took Emma with her because Emma begged for ice cream. I stayed back with Dad to help clean the fish he and my uncle had brought over. I did not actually help much. I mostly held a plastic grocery bag open and tried not to breathe through my nose. Dad laughed at my face. "You don't have to pretend you like this," he said. "I'm not pretending. You're turning green. I'm committed." He smiled at that, a real smile. The kind that made the lines around his eyes show. After we finished, he washed his hands twice at the outdoor spigot. The sun was going down behind the trees, and the lake had that flat copper color it got right before dark. He sat beside me on the porch steps with 2 cans of soda. Mine was orange, his was root beer. For a while, neither of us talked. Then he said, "You watch everybody." I looked down at my shoes. "I don't mean that as a bad thing," he said. "I know, you catch things." I shrugged. "Somebody has to." He did not answer right away. That was the thing about my father. He did not rush to fill silence. He let it sit there until the truth found somewhere to land. Finally, he said, "You're still allowed to be a kid, Cynthia." I remember wanting to believe him. I also remember thinking he was wrong. Because by then, I already knew which bills were kept in the brown folder by the phone. I knew Mom hated when the mail piled up. I knew Emma cried if anyone raised their voice after dinner. I knew Dad rubbed the left side of his chest when he was tired, though I did not know yet what that would mean later. I knew too much for a child, but not enough to change anything. After he got sick, the lake house changed first. Not all at once, small things. The porch did not get swept as often. The boat stayed covered. Mom stopped wanting weekend trips unless other people were coming because she said it was too much work for just us. Dad still tried. Even when his shirts got loose at the collar and he started sitting down between tasks, he tried to make the lake house feel normal. He made pancakes from a chair one morning, giving me instructions like I had been promoted. Flip when the bubbles hold. I know, medium heat, not high. I know, don't let Emma pour syrup directly from the bottle. I definitely know. Emma was 13 then, pretending not to be scared by being louder than usual. She complained about school, about her hair, about how unfair it was that Mom kept talking about family Christmas cards in September. Dad listened to all of it. Mom sat at the table with a planner open, making notes about appointments, insurance calls, prescriptions, and who needed to be thanked for casseroles. Everything had a column. Everything had a checkbox. That was how she handled fear. She organized it until it looked like control. One afternoon, near the end, Dad asked me to come with him to the bedroom at the lake house. I remember the light in that room, pale and dusty. The curtains were half closed because bright light hurt his eyes by then. He moved slowly to the dresser and opened the top drawer. Inside was the handkerchief. The cufflinks were wrapped the way they always were. He placed them in my hand. They were heavier than I expected. Not actually heavy, just heavy for what they meant. Dad, I said, you should keep these. I am. I looked at him. He smiled a little. I'm keeping them with you. I did not like that sentence. It sounded too much like goodbye. He took an envelope from the drawer next. Cream-colored, sealed, with Emma's name written across the front in his careful block letters. My throat tightened. What is that? For her wedding day. I almost laughed because Emma was 13 and still had braces. Dad, I know, he said. It feels far away. It is far away. I hope so. That was the part that made me look down. He sat on the edge of the bed, tired from standing. I stayed where I was, holding the cufflinks and the envelope like I had been handed something breakable. Cynthia, he said, when your sister gets married, make sure she has something of mine with her. Even if I can't walk her in, I want her to know I showed up. I did not answer. I was afraid that if I opened my mouth, I would make a sound neither of us could carry. He reached for my hand. Not because your mother forgets things, he said quietly. That sentence stayed with me. Because my mother did not forget anything that affected how people saw her. Dad looked toward the door, then back at me. Because some promises need the right person to keep them. I closed my fingers around the cufflinks. Does Mom know? His face changed in a way I did not understand then, not fear exactly. More like sadness with caution inside it. She knows I love both of you, he said. That was not an answer. I knew it was not an answer. But I was young enough to accept it, because I wanted fewer things to be wrong. After he died, I bought a small velvet pouch from a jewelry store in town. I paid for it with babysitting money, and kept the receipt folded in the bottom of my desk drawer for years. I put the cufflinks inside, then the envelope. Then I tucked the pouch into a shoebox with old birthday cards, lake house keys, and a photo of Dad standing on the dock with one hand raised against the sun. Mom never asked for the cufflinks. Not once. At the time, I told myself she did not know I had them. Later, I wondered if she knew exactly where they were and simply did not want to mention the one thing Dad had trusted me to carry. Because that would mean admitting he had trusted me at all. And for years, that little pouch stayed hidden in my closet. Waiting for a wedding. Waiting for Emma. Waiting for a day I thought would finally let me give something back. I did not know then that when that day came, the person most afraid of that promise would be standing at the door. After Dad died, people kept saying our house felt full, full of flowers, full of casseroles, full of sympathy cards with silver crosses and watercolor birds on the front, full of people standing in the kitchen whispering things like, "She's handling it so well." While Mom stood at the counter in a black dress, writing thank you notes before the funeral flowers had even started to wilt. I remember the sound of her pen. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Every name went into a list. Every dish got labeled with masking tape. Every card got opened, read, stacked, and answered. Grief became folders. That was how it happened in our house. There was the insurance folder, the medical bills folder, the funeral receipts folder, the estate folder, the lake house folder. Mom put them all in a plastic file crate beside the dining room table, and for weeks that crate felt more present than Dad did. People came by and asked what they could do. Mom would hand them a task: pick up dry cleaning, return serving dishes, call Aunt Melissa, move the flowers away from the window before they browned. Emma cried in short bursts, in the bathroom, in Dad's recliner. Once in the cereal aisle because she saw root beer on sale. I stayed busy, not because I was fine, because there was always something that needed doing. I rinsed casserole dishes and wrote names on sticky notes. I made sure Emma took her school permission slip out of her backpack. I learned which pharmacy still had Dad's prescriptions waiting because nobody had called to cancel them. I folded the navy tie he had worn to my 8th grade awards night and put it in a drawer because Mom said she could not look at it. The velvet pouch stayed in my closet, hidden inside the shoebox. Some nights I opened it just to make sure everything was still there. The cufflinks, the envelope, Emma's name in Dad's handwriting. I never opened the letter. Not once. I wanted to. Of course I wanted to. I was 16 and sad and angry in a way I did not have language for yet. I wanted one more sentence from him that was not addressed to a doctor or a bank or a hospital discharge form. But the letter was not mine, so I left it sealed. That was the first promise I kept after he was gone. The second was harder. I kept trying to keep Emma soft. That sounds strange now, maybe unfair. She was not a thing to protect from weather. She was my sister. But after Dad died, Mom started treating Emma like the last beautiful thing left in the family. She dressed her carefully for memorial events. She made sure people saw her cry. She let relatives hug Emma first, then looked at me afterward like I should understand why that made sense. She's younger, Mom would say quietly. I would nod. She needs more support. I would nod again. And maybe that was true. Emma was younger, but I was still a child too. That part got misplaced somewhere between the funeral program and the paperwork. The lake house became different after the funeral. We did not go for a while. Mom said it was too much, too many memories, too much maintenance, too much driving. Then, when we finally did go, it was not for a weekend. It was to sort things. That was the phrase she used, sort things. She brought cardboard boxes, trash bags, a roll of labels, and a black marker. Emma brought headphones and sat on the dock for most of the afternoon, wrapped in Dad's old sweatshirt. I followed Mom from room to room. Keep, donate, trash, she said. She said it like those were the only 3 categories grief could fit into. In the main bedroom, she opened dresser drawers and moved quickly. Socks, old receipts, a spare watch band, a cracked pair of reading glasses. Then she opened the top drawer, the one where Dad used to keep the handkerchief. For 1 second, her hand stopped. Just one. Then she closed the drawer and said, "Nothing useful in there." I was standing behind her with a box of folded sheets in my arms. My heart started beating so hard I could feel it in my throat. The handkerchief was gone because I had it. The cufflinks were gone because I had them. The letter was gone because Dad had given it to me. Mom did not turn around. She did not ask. She just moved to the closet and started pulling hangers apart. At the time, I told myself that meant she did not know. Later, I was not so sure. Years passed in a way that felt uneven. Emma became the kind of pretty people commented on before they asked how she was. She had Dad's smile, but Mom learned how to frame it: school dances, graduation pictures, sorority photos later. Everything had captions, everything had lighting, everything had a version of family in it. I was there for some of it. Not absent exactly, just not centered. When Emma graduated high school, Mom sent out announcements with a photo of Emma in a white dress by the lake. I had taken that photo. I had driven her there early because Mom wanted morning light, and Emma had overslept. In the announcement, Mom wrote, "Our beautiful girl carrying her father's light." I stared at that line for a long time. Not because it was untrue, because it was incomplete. Emma called me from college sometimes, usually late. Usually when she was walking back from the library or sitting on the floor of her dorm because her roommate had guests over. With Emma, things could still feel normal if Mom was not in the middle of them. She would say, Do you remember when Dad dropped the pancake batter on the dog? Or do you think he'd hate my major? Or I found a diner that has root beer floats and I almost cried like an idiot. I liked those calls. I kept them light. I did not tell her about the envelope. I did not tell her that sometimes, when she talked about getting married someday, I pictured the cream-colored paper with her name on it. It felt too heavy to give her early, and Dad had said her wedding day, so I waited. I got used to waiting. After college, I moved 2 towns over for work. I rented a small apartment above a dentist's office, the kind of place where the heat clanked in winter and the kitchen cabinets had been painted too many times. I kept the shoebox on the top shelf of my closet. Birth certificates, old cards, the lake house key, the velvet pouch. Every time I moved, I packed it myself, never with books, never with kitchen things, always in the bag that stayed beside me in the front seat. Mom remarried when I was 21. His name was Daniel. He was polite in the way people are polite when they do not plan to know you very deeply. He wore expensive sweaters and said things like, from a practical standpoint, before giving opinions nobody had asked for. Emma liked him at first. Or maybe she liked that Mom seemed calmer with him. He talked about investments and property taxes and underused assets. The first time I heard him call the lake house an asset, I was standing at Mom's kitchen sink, washing wine glasses after a family dinner. I looked up. Mom was smiling at him, not lovingly exactly, approvingly. It's expensive to maintain, Daniel said. Sentiment is understandable, but at some point you have to think rationally. Emma was scrolling through her phone at the table. She did not seem to hear him. I dried the glass slowly and set it on the counter. Mom noticed. She always noticed when my face changed. Cynthia, she said, don't start. I didn't say anything. You don't have to. Daniel gave a small laugh, like we were being charming. I went back to drying the glass. That became the pattern. I did not say anything. Mom answered anyway. A year later, Emma got engaged. I found out on a Tuesday morning while I was standing in line at the DMV to renew my license. My phone buzzed. It was a group text with 12 people in it. A photo loaded slowly because the building had terrible service. Emma's hand, a ring. Her fiancé, Ryan, grinning beside her with one arm around her shoulders. Mom had written, "Our girl said yes, our girl." I stared at the photo until the woman behind me cleared her throat, because the line had moved. For a few seconds, I felt happy before anything else. Real happiness. Emma looked beautiful. Surprised, a little teary. Her hair was windblown and her smile was not posed. It was the kind of smile Dad would have loved. Then I realized I was learning about it with Mom's yoga instructor, 2 cousins we barely saw, and Daniel's sister from Arizona. I typed, "Emma, I'm so happy for you." I erased the heart, then I put it back. She called me that night. "I was going to call you first," she said quickly. I was sitting on my kitchen floor sorting laundry because my dryer had started making a grinding sound. "It's okay," I said. "No, I mean it." Mom grabbed my phone. She was excited. I folded a towel across my knees. "I know," Emma exhaled. "It's already a lot." I could hear voices behind her, Mom's voice. Daniel's too. Someone laughed. Emma lowered her voice. "Ryan's mom wants spring. Mom wants September. Daniel keeps talking about venue deposits like he's producing a documentary." I smiled a little. "That sounds about right." "I want you there for everything," she said. That sentence landed in me carefully, like something fragile. "Of course," I said. "I mean it, Cyn. I know." But even as she said it, I heard Mom in the background. "Emma, sweetheart, ask her if she's sure she can get time off. We need realistic numbers." Emma went quiet for half a second. Then she said too brightly, "Mom says we need realistic numbers." There it was. The first little door closing. Not slammed, just guided shut by a careful hand. After that, wedding information came to me in pieces, a screenshot of colors, a forwarded hotel block, a registry link, a message from Mom that said, "No pressure if travel is difficult." Then another, "Your sister understands if you can't make every event." Then another, after I asked about the bridal shower. "It's very small, mostly local people. We didn't want you to feel obligated." I read that one 3 times. "We didn't want you to feel obligated." It sounded considerate if you did not know my mother. If you did, you could hear the lock turning. I was not invited to dress shopping. Emma texted me a photo afterward. She looked stunning in a satin gown, standing on a little platform while Mom cried beside her with one hand over her mouth. The caption said, "I think this is the one." I wrote back, "You look like yourself." In the best way. She sent 3 crying emojis. Then nothing for 2 days. Later, she told me Mom said phones were not allowed during the appointment because she wanted Emma present in the moment. I believed that and did not believe it at the same time. By summer, I understood that I was being included just enough that no one could say I had been excluded. I received the invitation in the mail, cream envelope, gold lining, my name printed correctly. No +1, no note, no mention of family photos, rehearsal dinner, bridal breakfast, or whether Emma wanted me with her before the ceremony. Just the ceremony time, the reception address, the RSP card, I checked yes. I wrote my name carefully. Then I took the velvet pouch out of the shoebox for the first time in almost a year. The fabric had flattened a little from being stored so long. I held it in my palm and thought about Dad saying, "Some promises need the right person to keep them." I still did not know whether Mom knew, but I started to suspect she knew enough. 2 days before the wedding, she called me while I was at work. I stepped into the hallway near the copier. "Cynthia," she said, "I just want to make sure you're coming with the right mindset." I looked down at the stack of invoices in my hand. The right mindset? This is Emma's day. I know that. She's been under a lot of stress. I don't want anything old being brought up. My fingers tightened around the papers. "What old thing?" Mom was quiet. "Not long, just enough. You know how you get," she said. I almost laughed then, not because it was funny, because it was so familiar. "How do I get?" Sensitive. The copier beeped behind me. Someone needed me to move. I stepped farther down the hall. "I'm coming to support Emma." "Good," she said. That's all anyone wants. But it did not feel like that was all. That night, I cleaned my dress with a lint roller and hung it from the bathroom door. I printed my hotel confirmation. I checked the route twice. I texted Emma, "I'll be there tomorrow evening. Need anything?" She answered almost an hour later. "Just you." I looked at those 2 words for a long time. Then another message came in, from Mom. "Remember, tomorrow is not the day to bring up old things." I stood in my bedroom with the phone in one hand and the velvet pouch in the other. For the first time, I wondered if the thing Dad had trusted me to carry had never really been hidden. Maybe Mom had known all along. Maybe she had just been waiting for the wedding, too. I did not sleep much that night. I told myself it was because of the drive. 9 hours was a long time to spend alone with highway noise and coffee that tasted burned no matter where I bought it. I had work emails to finish, a bag to pack, a dress to keep from wrinkling, and a hotel check-in I did not want to miss. But that was not why I kept waking up. It was the message. Tomorrow is not the day to bring up old things. I kept seeing it every time I closed my eyes. Old things. I did not know if she meant Dad or the lake house, or the fact that I had not been included in anything that actually mattered, or the small velvet pouch sitting on my dresser like it had been waiting all these years to become dangerous. Around midnight, I got out of bed and went to the kitchen for water. My apartment was quiet except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the clicking sound the radiator made even when it was not cold. I stood barefoot on the tile and unlocked my phone without really meaning to. There was a new email. Not from Mom, not from Emma. From a name I recognized but had not seen in my inbox for almost a year, Margaret Bell. Dad's estate attorney. The subject line said, "Follow up Smith Family Lake Property Trust." For a few seconds, I just stared at it. The email had been sent earlier that evening, but it had gone into a folder I barely checked because it was tied to old estate correspondence. Most of those messages were boring things: tax statements, insurance notices, maintenance estimates. Copies of documents I kept because Dad had taught me never to throw away anything with a signature on it. I opened it standing there in my kitchen, glass of water untouched beside the sink. "Cynthia, I received a request today asking whether administrative release forms could be prepared for signature following Emma's wedding weekend. Because you are still listed as temporary trustee protector under the Lake Property Trust, I cannot process any release or transfer documents without confirming your understanding of the request. Please call when you are able. Administrative release forms, following Emma's wedding weekend." I read it again, then again. The words were calm, legal, dry. But my body understood them before my mind did. I sat down at the kitchen table. The table wobbled if I leaned on the left side, so I placed my hands flat in the center and tried to breathe slowly. The Lake Property Trust. Dad had mentioned a trust once, near the end, when Mom was outside taking a phone call, and Emma was asleep in the recliner beside his bed. He had said there were papers, Margaret would explain later. He had said the lake house was protected. At 16, protected sounded like one of those adult words people used to make dying less frightening. I did not understand what it meant. After the funeral, Margaret had mailed copies of everything. Mom had said she would handle it, but one envelope came directly to me because my name was on it. I remembered opening it at the kitchen counter, trying to make sense of phrases like fiduciary duty and beneficial interest while Mom watched me from the dining room. "You don't need to worry about all that," she said. I had looked up. "It has my name on it. Your father was sentimental," she said. "He put names on things." That was how she said it. Like Dad had been leaving little decorative labels everywhere. Not making choices. Not protecting anyone. Just being sentimental. I kept the documents anyway. They were in a blue folder in the bottom drawer of my desk. I went to get it. The drawer stuck halfway because it always did. I pulled too hard and a stack of old receipts slid forward. Oiled change, dentist, grocery store. A locksmith receipt from when I moved into the apartment and changed the deadbolt myself because the old tenant still had keys. Underneath was the blue folder. It still had Margaret's business card clipped to the front. I carried it to the kitchen table and opened it. The paper smelled faintly stale, like ink and dust. Some pages had sticky notes from years ago, written in my own teenage handwriting. "Ask what this means. Do not lose. Copy for Emma?" I had forgotten about that last one. Copy for Emma? I sat with that for a moment. Then I began reading. Most of it was still dense. Legal language has a way of making simple things feel deliberately far away. But certain words stood out because Margaret had underlined them in an explanatory letter. Lake property shall not be sold, transferred, refinanced, encumbered, or released from trust control without informed written consent of both beneficiaries, after the younger beneficiary reaches the age of 25 or enters legal marriage, whichever occurs first. Both beneficiaries, Emma and me, temporary trustee protector Cynthia Smith, until milestone event. Purpose: preservation of family property for the mutual benefit of daughters. I read that sentence 3 times. For the mutual benefit of daughters. Not Mom, not Daniel. Not whoever thought sentiment should become an asset. Daughters. My hands were cold. I turned another page and found a paragraph Margaret had explained in plain English years ago. If Emma married before 25, her marriage triggered the next phase of the trust. Certain documents could be signed after that, but only if she understood what she was signing. Only if both of us agreed. Only if no one was being pressured. No one was being pressured. I almost laughed. Then I stopped because it did not feel funny. I thought about Daniel at Mom's kitchen table talking about property taxes and underused assets. I thought about Mom saying realistic numbers. I thought about the way wedding details came to me in pieces, always filtered, always softened, always too late to question. And then I thought about Emma. Just you. That was what she had texted. Not documents. Not lake house. Not signatures. Just you. I checked the time. 12:36 a.m. Too late to call Margaret. But not too late to search my email. I typed in release forms. Nothing at first. Then I searched lake property. Several messages appeared. Insurance. Tax assessment. A repair estimate for the dock. Then, one forwarded chain from 2 weeks earlier that I had missed because Mom had not sent it to me directly. It came from Daniel to Mom. Mom must have forwarded only the attachment, maybe by accident, or maybe because she wanted me to see a harmless version of it. The earlier messages were still attached underneath. Daniel had written, "Once the wedding is done, Emma will be in a much more cooperative frame of mind. We should have Margaret prepare the release paperwork while everyone is gathered. Cynthia may resist, but if she is not pulled into the discussion immediately, we can keep this simple." I stopped reading, not because there was nothing else, because I needed a moment before I could keep going. The refrigerator hummed. A car passed outside. Somewhere upstairs, my neighbor's dog barked once and went quiet. I read it again. If she is not pulled into the discussion immediately, that was the sentence. Not if Cynthia agrees. Not if Cynthia understands. If she is not pulled into the discussion. There are moments when betrayal does not feel like a knife. It feels like a receipt. A record. Something ordinary that proves someone has already made peace with harming you. I scrolled farther. Mom's reply was short. The wedding cannot become about Cynthia. Emma will be emotional. Timing matters. Timing. I pressed my palm against my mouth and stared at the screen. For years, I had thought Mom's control was mostly about appearances, photos, guest lists, who stood where, who cried in the right places. But this was different. This was not just about making sure I did not stand too close in a picture. This was about making sure I did not stand close enough to stop something. The next morning, I called Margaret from my car in the parking lot of a print shop. The dress was hanging in the back seat. My overnight bag was already packed. The velvet pouch was inside my purse, beside my wallet, because I did not want it out of reach. Margaret answered on the second ring. "Cynthia," she said. "I'm glad you called." Her voice was kind but careful. That made me sit straighter. "I got your email. I assumed you might have questions." "Yes," I said. "Who requested the forms, huh?" A pause. "Your mother's husband contacted my office initially." Your mother followed up. I looked through the windshield at a man carrying poster board into the print shop. Did Emma request them? No, that one word made my stomach settle and drop at the same time. Does Emma know what they are? "I can't speak to what she has been told," Margaret said. But based on the language in the request, I had concerns. "What language?" Another pause. Then paper rustled faintly on her end. They referred to it as a routine estate simplification after the wedding. Routine. Simplification. Words that sounded clean enough to hide fingerprints. Margaret continued. "Cynthia, your father's instructions were very clear. The lake house cannot be released, sold, or refinanced without informed consent. Your sister's marriage changes her legal position, but it does not remove your role." I swallowed. "So if they try to get her to sign something after the wedding, tell her not to sign anything she has not reviewed independently." There it was. Plain enough that no one could hide in soft language. I closed my eyes for a second. "Margaret," I said, "I don't want to start a fight on her wedding day. I understand. I'm not trying to control anything. I know." She said it so simply that my throat tightened. Maybe because I had gotten used to defending motives no one had asked me about. Margaret said, "Bring a copy of the trust summary, not the full packet. Just the summary and my card. If Emma asks, give it to her. If no one asks, document everything and call me after the weekend." I nodded before remembering she could not see me. "Okay. And Cynthia?" "Yes, your father chose carefully." I did not answer. I could not. After we hung up, I went into the print shop and made 2 copies of the trust summary. I paid in cash because my card had been acting up and the receipt printed crooked. The clerk asked if I wanted a folder. I almost said no. Then I looked at the pages in my hand. "Yes," I said. "Blue if you have one." They had blue. Not the same shade as the old estate folder, but close enough that it made my chest hurt. Back at my apartment, I laid everything on my bed. The navy dress, the hotel confirmation, the printed route, the trust summary, Margaret's business card, the small velvet pouch. I opened the pouch and checked the contents one more time. The cufflinks were still wrapped in the soft cloth. The envelope was still sealed. Emma's name was still there in Dad's handwriting. I did not open it, even then. Even with the wedding less than 2 days away, even with Mom's warning sitting on my phone, like a hand on my shoulder, even with Daniel's email proving that the lake house had become more than memory to them. The letter was still Emma's, so I put it back. Then I placed the trust summary in a separate folder and slid it into the inside pocket of my bag. I told myself I was only bringing it in case my sister asked. I told myself the wedding could still be peaceful. I told myself Mom might not go that far. But while I zipped the bag closed, my phone lit up with one more message from her. "Text me before you walk in tomorrow. I don't want surprises." I looked at the bag, at the pouch, at the folder, at the dress hanging quietly on the bathroom door. And for the first time, I understood that my mother was not worried I would ruin Emma's wedding. She was worried I might arrive with proof I left before sunrise, not dramatically. There was no final look around the apartment. No long pause with my hand on the doorknob. I was too tired for anything that clean. I unplugged the phone charger from the wall, checked the stove twice, carried my garment bag over one arm, and locked the door with my shoulder pressed against it because the frame always stuck when the weather was damp. The hallway smelled like old carpet and someone's coffee. For a second, standing there with my overnight bag at my feet, I had the strange thought that I could still stay home. I could text Emma that I was sick. I could tell Mom she had won without making her say the words. I could put the velvet pouch back in the shoebox and let the wedding happen exactly the way everyone else had arranged it. Then I thought of Emma's message, just you, so I picked up the bag and went downstairs. The morning was gray and wet, not raining exactly, just misting enough to make the pavement shine. I laid the garment bag across the back seat carefully, smoothing the navy dress through the plastic. The blue folder went in my overnight bag, zipped inside the inner pocket. Margaret's card was clipped to the front of the trust summary. The velvet pouch did not go in the trunk. I put it in my purse. Then I set the purse on the passenger seat where I could see it. That probably sounds small. It did not feel small. It felt like keeping Dad within reach. I stopped for gas 40 minutes later. The station was almost empty, except for a delivery truck and a man in work boots buying cigarettes at the counter. I bought coffee, a bottle of water, and a granola bar I did not end up eating. The receipt printed slowly. I folded it once and tucked it into the cup holder for no reason, except that I had started keeping records without thinking. That was what the last 24 hours had done to me. Everything felt like it might matter later. The first few hours of the drive were quiet, not peaceful, just quiet. The highway stretched out in long, wet lines, and the wipers moved every few seconds with that soft, dragging sound. My phone stayed plugged into the dashboard. The directions spoke in a flat voice every now and then, telling me to stay on the same road for another 100 miles, then another 80, then another 56. I liked that kind of instruction. Simple. Stay here. Keep going. Do not decide anything yet. Around 9, Emma texted, "Are you on the road?" I waited until the next rest stop to answer, "Yes." "About 6 hours out. How are you?" The 3 little dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Overwhelmed a lull. I love Ryan, but I never want to hear the word seating chart again. I smiled despite myself. Then another message came. "Can't wait for today to be over and to finally breathe." I sat in the parked car with both hands wrapped around the coffee cup. Finally breathe. That was the kind of thing Emma said when she did not know how much she was telling me. It sounded casual, almost funny, but I could hear the exhaustion underneath it. I typed, "You don't have to make today perfect." I stared at that sentence, then I deleted it. It felt too heavy for a rest stop text on the morning before her wedding. Instead, I wrote, "You just have to show up. That's the whole job." She sent back a heart. Then, a minute later, a photo. It was blurry, probably taken from a chair in some salon or hotel suite. I could see curling irons, makeup brushes, a half-empty tray of fruit, and a strip of white fabric that might have been her dress hanging in the background. In the corner of the photo, my mother's hand was visible, not her face, just her hand, pointing at something. I zoomed in before I could stop myself. There was nothing useful to see. Just a hand with pale pink nails directing the room. I put the phone down. A few minutes later, Mom texted, "Text me before you arrive." Then, almost immediately, "Do not walk in without checking with me first." Photos are on a strict schedule. I read it twice. There was no drive safe, no Emma is excited, no see you soon, only timing, access, control. I placed the phone face down on the passenger seat beside the purse and pulled back onto the highway. By noon, the sky had cleared a little. Sun came through in thin strips between clouds, bright enough to make me lower the visor. The road flattened into farmland for a while, brown fields, white fences. Little houses set back from the road with mailboxes leaning toward traffic. I passed a sign for a lake exit and felt my chest tighten. Not our lake, not our house. Still, memory does not care about geography. For a few miles, I was back on the porch steps with Dad, orange soda in my hand. His root beer balanced beside him. His voice saying, "You're still allowed to be a kid, Cynthia." I wondered what he would think of me now. 23 years old, driving to a wedding with his cufflinks in my purse and legal documents in my bag. Still watching everybody. Still trying to get there before something happened. At the next gas stop, I changed out of my travel sweater in the restroom and put on the navy dress. The lighting was harsh. The mirror had water spots. Someone had scratched initials into the metal frame. I stood there for a moment, smoothing the fabric over my hips. The dress was modest, plain, appropriate. A dress chosen by someone who wanted no one to be able to accuse her of trying to take attention. I pinned my hair back, then took it down and did it again because one side looked uneven. My hands shook just enough to annoy me. "Stop," I whispered, not harshly. Just enough to hear myself. In the car, I checked the folder again. Trust summary, Margaret's card. Second copy folded behind it. Then the pouch, cufflinks wrapped, letter sealed. Emma's name untouched. I closed the purse and kept driving. The closer I got, the more messages came in. From Emma, they're taking my phone soon. If I disappear, I'm not ignoring you. Then Mom is making everyone insane, but I'm okay. Then, you're still coming, right? I answered immediately when I could safely pull over. Yes, I'm coming, her reply came almost at once. Good, just that, good. It hurt how much one word could matter. Mom's next message arrived 20 minutes later. Remember, immediate family photos are before the ceremony. We cannot adjust the timeline. I looked at it while parked at a red light at the end of an exit ramp. Immediate family. The words sat there, clean and official. I wondered if I was supposed to ask what that meant. I wondered if she wanted me to. Then another message appeared. Please don't create confusion. The light turned green. A truck behind me tapped its horn. I drove. For the last hour, I stopped listening to music. I turned the radio off and let the car fill with road noise. Tires on pavement. Wind along the windows. The occasional rattle from the hanger in the back seat. I thought about turning the car around only once. Not because I wanted to. Because some part of me understood that after I arrived, I would not be able to unknow what happened next. Until then, the wedding still existed as a possibility. Maybe Emma would see me and smile. Maybe Mom would be tense but polite. Maybe Daniel would avoid me. Maybe I would hand Emma the pouch in some quiet room before the ceremony, and she would hold Dad's letter against her chest, and for 5 minutes, the whole day would belong to something honest. I let myself picture that. I needed to. The venue appeared just after 4. It sat at the end of a long driveway lined with white stones and trimmed hedges. There were cars already parked in neat rows. Women in dresses walked carefully over the gravel. Men adjusted cuffs and ties near the entrance. A photographer stood on the front steps, holding a camera at his hip, while someone moved a vase of white flowers 2 inches to the left. Of course the flowers were white. Of course they were perfect. I pulled into a space near the back and turned off the engine. For a moment, I did not move. My hands rested on the steering wheel. The car ticked softly as it cooled. Through the windshield, I could see the front doors open and close as guests went in. I checked my reflection in the mirror. I looked tired, but present. That felt like enough. I took my purse from the passenger seat. The velvet pouch was inside. The blue folder was in my overnight bag. I left the bag in the trunk for the moment, then hesitated and took the folder out, sliding it flat into the large side pocket of my purse. Just in case, that was what I told myself, just in case. I stepped out of the car and smoothed the navy dress with both hands. The air smelled like cut grass, perfume, and rain drying on pavement. For one brief second, standing there in the parking lot with the venue in front of me, I let myself hope. Not for much, just to walk in, just to see my sister, just to keep a promise. Then I looked toward the front entrance. My mother was standing beside the doors. She was not speaking to guests. She was not fixing flowers. She was not looking for the photographer. She was looking directly at me, and she smiled like she had been waiting. My mother did not move toward me at first. She waited. That was worse somehow. She stood beside the front doors in a pale blue dress with a pearl clasped her waist, one hand resting lightly on her phone, the other holding a folded wedding schedule. She looked exactly like a woman helping her daughter have a perfect day. If anyone had glanced over, they would have seen a mother waiting for a guest. They would not have seen a door being guarded. I walked toward her slowly enough that my heels did not catch in the gravel. The purse felt heavy against my shoulder. I could feel the corner of the blue folder pressing flat against my side. The velvet pouch was inside too, small and soft and suddenly impossible to forget. "Hi, Mom," I said. She looked me up and down, not dramatically. Just enough. "You made good time." I said I would. Her smile stayed in place, but her eyes moved past me, toward the parking lot, like she was checking whether I had come alone. Then she stepped slightly to the side, not away from the door, in front of it. "Cynthia," she said quietly, "I need you to be reasonable." There it was. The same voice from every difficult family moment, soft enough to sound kind. Sharp enough to leave a mark. I looked behind her. Through the open doors I could see the lobby. White flowers, gold-framed signs, a table with folded place cards. Guests moving through with drinks in their hands. Somewhere deeper inside, music was playing low while people waited for the ceremony. I said, "I'm here for Emma. I know what you think you're here for." I looked back at her. "What does that mean?" Her mouth tightened for less than a second. "It means today is not the day for complicated energy." The phrase almost made me tired. Not angry first, tired, because some families do not tell you to leave. Not right away. They build a soft little room around the word leave and wait for you to walk into it yourself. "I'm not bringing complicated energy," I said. "I'm attending my sister's wedding." A couple approached behind us, smiling, dressed nicely. My mother turned half toward them and brightened. "Welcome," she said warmly. "The ceremony space is straight through." They thanked her and went inside. As soon as they passed, her face settled again. "You can't come in right now." I kept my voice low. "Why?" "Because Emma is overwhelmed. Then I should see her." "No," Mom said quickly, too quickly. "That is exactly what she does not need." I held still. There were times with my mother when the safest thing was to say some less and let the silence make her choose her next lie carefully. She glanced at the schedule in her hand. She wants a peaceful day. She does not want tension. She does not want old family issues in the room. And she especially does not want anything disrupting photos. "Emma said that?" Mom looked toward the lobby again. "Don't do this. I'm asking a question. She shouldn't have to manage your feelings today." "My feelings are managed," I said. Her eyes came back to mine then. For a second, I saw the irritation underneath the polish. "She does not want you in the photos." The words were quiet, public safe. But they landed with the full weight of the 9-hour drive behind them. I heard a camera shutter click somewhere inside. I heard someone laugh. I heard a woman say, "Oh, this place is gorgeous." I said, "Did Emma say that herself?" Mom looked at me for a long second. Then she said, "Emma has enough on her plate." That was not an answer, I knew it. She knew I knew it. But she also knew we were standing in front of a wedding venue, with guests walking past, and she had spent years teaching me what would happen if I made a scene. A woman with a headset approached from inside, holding a clipboard against her chest. "Mrs. Smith," she said. Mom turned with that instant pleasantness again. "Yes? The photographer is asking for immediate family in 5 minutes." The woman's eyes moved to me and paused politely. Mom said, "Cynthia was just leaving." I watched the woman's expression shift. Not shock. Professional adjustment. The kind people make when they realize they have walked into a private situation and need to pretend they have not. "I'm sorry," she said carefully. "Are you with the bridal party?" "I'm the bride's sister," I said. She looked down at the clipboard. That small movement hurt before she said anything. There are humiliations that come with witnesses and noise. And there are humiliations that come with paper. Her finger moved down the page, then back up. Then she turned one sheet over. "I'm sorry," she said again, softer this time. "I don't have you listed for the indoor family staging." Indoor family staging, not family. Not photos, a staging category. Mom exhaled like this was unfortunate but unavoidable. "There must have been some confusion," she said. I looked at her. "No," I said quietly. There wasn't. The planner's cheeks colored. "I can check with the bride," she offered. Mom's head turned fast. "Absolutely not. Emma is in final prep." The planner closed her mouth. That told me more than I wanted to know. Mom stepped closer, lowering her voice even further. "You can wait outside. The ceremony space has speakers near the patio wall. You'll be able to hear most of it." For a moment, I did not understand. Then I did. "You want me to listen from outside. I want you to not make this about yourself." My hand tightened around the purse strap. Inside that purse were Dad's cufflinks, Emma's letter, the trust summary. Proof that I had come to protect something, not take something. But all my mother saw was a problem she could move out of frame. A group of guests passed near us. I stepped back to let them through. Mom smiled at them. I looked at the floor until they were gone. Then I asked, "Does Emma know I'm here?" Mom's answer came too smoothly. "She knows you have a lot of feelings about today." That's not what I asked. She knows enough. I nodded once. It was not agreement. It was me placing that sentence somewhere I could remember it later. She knows enough. The photographer appeared in the doorway, camera hanging from his neck. "Family in the garden?" he asked. Mom lifted one finger. "Coming." Then she looked at me again. "Please, Cynthia, for once, do the loving thing." It was almost impressive. How she could turn exile into a test of love. I could have said so many things. I could have asked about Daniel's email. I could have asked why Margaret had been contacted. I could have taken the blue folder out right there and watched her face change. But Emma was inside. And Emma still did not know. So I said, I'll step away. Mom's shoulders loosened a fraction. Not much, enough. I walked back across the front drive with my face calm and my ears burning. I did not go to my car immediately. I went around the side of the building, where the noise was lower, and the wall curved toward a service path. There was a low stone border beside the parking lot. Sat there. For a few minutes, I just looked at my hands. They were resting in my lap, fingers still from trying not to shake. The music inside shifted. Chairs scraped faintly, a door opened and closed. Someone inside clapped once, probably testing sound or calling people into place. I could hear the wedding through the wall. It was strange how close it all was, 10 feet maybe. A few layers of brick, a locked version of belonging. I opened my purse. The blue folder was still there. I touched the edge of it, then let it go. Then I took out the velvet pouch. The fabric looked darker in the shade. I held it for a moment before opening it. The cufflinks were wrapped in the soft cloth, just like always. I unfolded the cloth enough to see the silver catch a thin line of afternoon light. One cufflink tilted against the other with a tiny sound. A click, small, clean. Like Dad setting them in the blue dish beside his watch. The envelope was beneath them. Emma's name looked the same as it had for years. I did not open it. I just sat there with it in my hand while strangers inside laughed and settled into seats. A few minutes later, footsteps came around the side of the building. I knew it was Mom before I looked up. She had the clipped walk she got when she was trying not to appear hurried. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Sitting. You need to go to your car. I'm not blocking anyone. This looks strange." I almost smiled. Not because I was amused, because after everything, that was still where she lived. How it looked. "I drove 9 hours," I said. "I'm not leaving before the ceremony." Her eyes dropped to the pouch in my hand. Something changed in her face, just a flicker, but I saw it. "Put that away." I closed my fingers over it. "Why? Because this is not the time." "For what?" "For whatever point you think you're making." I looked at her then. Really looked. "I haven't made any point. You sitting here like this is a point. I'm sitting where you told me I was allowed to be." Her jaw tightened. Before she could answer, Daniel appeared near the corner of the building. He wore a dark suit and the expression of a man inconvenienced by emotion. "Everything all right?" he asked. Mom did not look at him. "She's refusing to leave." "I didn't ask her to leave," Daniel said mildly. "I just think we should avoid complications before the ceremony." I watched him. He looked at my purse, not at my face, at my purse. Then he said, "After today there are practical things to handle. Documents, timing. It would be better not to agitate Emma beforehand." There it was, documents. One word and the whole shape of the day became clear. Mom's eyes snapped toward him. Too late. I felt something inside me settle. Not calm exactly, clarity. I put the cufflinks back into the pouch with careful fingers. "I see," I said. Daniel frowned. "You see what?" I pulled the drawstring closed. "Enough." Mom stepped closer. "Cynthia, don't be dramatic." "I'm not." And I wasn't. That was what seemed to bother her most. Inside, the music changed again, a fuller sound now. The kind of music that means guests are being seated for real. Mom looked toward the wall. "I have to get back." Daniel touched her elbow. "Come on." But before they turned away, a small side door near the service path opened a few inches. A young cousin, Lily, maybe 12, peeked out with wide eyes. "Aunt Karen," she said. "Emma's asking where Cynthia is." Everything went still. Mom's face softened instantly. The performance returned. "Tell her Cynthia couldn't make it yet, sweetheart. We're handling it." Lily looked past her and saw me, sitting there in my navy dress, holding the velvet pouch. Her mouth opened a little. Mom said sharper, "Lily." The girl disappeared back inside. The door clicked shut. For a few seconds, no one spoke. Then Mom said, "You see what you're doing?" I looked at the side door. "No," I said. "I think she saw what you're doing." Daniel muttered something under his breath and guided Mom away. They went back around the corner toward the front entrance, but I stayed where I was. The music swelled behind the wall. My phone buzzed once in my purse, but I did not reach for it. Then I heard movement on the other side of the side door. Not passing footsteps, stopping footsteps. A muffled voice, then another. The handle shifted once, paused, then began to turn. The side door opened slowly. Not wide at first, just enough for the music to spill out. Then Emma stepped into the doorway in her wedding dress. For a second, I forgot everything else. The parking lot, the folder, my mother Daniel, even the wall behind me. My sister stood there in white lace, with her hair pinned up loosely around her face, one hand holding her bouquet, the other still on the door. She looked beautiful, but not in the perfect way Mom had probably wanted. Her eyes were red at the edges, one curl had fallen loose near her cheek. She looked tired. She looked like herself. Behind her, someone whispered her name, but she did not turn around. She looked at me sitting on the stone border in my navy dress. Then she looked at the velvet pouch in my hand. "Sin," she said. I stood up, not quickly. My knees felt strange, like I had been sitting longer than I had. "Hi," I said. It was a stupid thing to say, but it was the only word that came out. Emma's eyes moved over me. My dress, my purse, the little wall, the parking lot behind me. Then her face changed. "How long have you been out here?" I heard footsteps around the corner before I answered. Mom and Daniel had come back. Of course they had. Mom's face was tight, but her voice was still soft. "Emma, sweetheart, you need to come inside. We are on a schedule." Emma did not look at her. "How long?" she asked me again. I held the pouch with both hands. "Since Mom told me you didn't want me inside," the music behind her kept playing. Soft, elegant. Completely wrong for what was happening. Emma turned her head slowly toward Mom. Mom smiled like she could still fix it. "That is not what I said." I did not speak. I had learned sometimes silence lets a lie stand in its own shape. Emma looked back at me. "She said I didn't want you here?" I swallowed. "She said you didn't want me in the photos." Emma's fingers loosened around the bouquet. Just a little. Then her eyes dropped again to the pouch. "What is that?" Mom moved fast. Not physically. Not enough for anyone else to call it panic. But her voice sharpened. "Emma, this is not the time." Emma looked at her. And in that look, I saw the little girl from the lake house, the one who used to look to me when her dress itched or Mom's voice got too clean. Only now she was not asking me to fix it, she was seeing it. I opened the pouch. The cufflinks rested inside the soft cloth, silver catching the light from the doorway. Emma stared at them, her mouth parted. She knew them, maybe not the way I did. Maybe not from years of watching Dad fasten them in the mirror, but she knew enough. Her hand opened, the bouquet fell. It hit the concrete with a soft sound, flowers spreading slightly, ribbon curling against the ground. No one moved. Mom's face went pale. "Emma," she whispered. Emma did not pick up the bouquet. She looked straight at Mom. "Did you tell my sister I didn't want her here?" Mom's lips pressed together. "She was going to upset you." "That is not what I asked." Daniel stepped forward. "This is becoming unnecessary." Emma turned to him. "Don't, one word. Quiet." But he stopped. Mom tried again. "You were overwhelmed. You said you wanted the day peaceful." "I asked where Cynthia was. You were emotional." "I asked where my sister was." That was the moment something shifted. Not loudly, no one screamed, no glass broke. But the version of the day Mom had built began to lose its balance. Emma looked at me again, and her voice changed. "What did you bring?" I glanced toward the open door. A bridesmaid stood just inside with one hand over her mouth. Lily was behind her, eyes huge. Farther back, the planner hovered, unsure whether to disappear or intervene. I did not want Dad's letter opened in front of an audience, so I stepped closer and lowered my voice. "Dad left these for you," I said. "For your wedding day." Emma's face folded, not completely. Just enough that I could see the 13-year-old girl still inside the bride. I took the envelope out from under the cufflinks. Her name was there in Dad's handwriting. Emma touched it with 2 fingers. "He wrote this?" "Yes." "When?" "Before he died." She closed her eyes once hard. Mom said, "I didn't know about any letter." I looked at her. I did not say what we both knew. Emma opened the envelope with shaking hands, carefully, like the paper could bruise. She read only the first few lines before her breath caught. Then she read one part out loud, but barely. "My button, if Cynthia is giving you this, it means she kept one of the hardest promises I ever asked anyone to keep." Her hand covered her mouth. I looked away, not because I was ashamed, because grief is private, even when it arrives late. Emma read a little more silently. Then she looked at me. "You had this the whole time?" I nodded. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because he said your wedding day." Her eyes filled. Mom stepped toward her. "Emma, we can talk about this later. People are waiting." Emma looked down at the bouquet on the ground, then back at the letter. "No," she said, "people can wait." Daniel exhaled through his nose. "This is exactly why I said the estate issues should not be mixed into today. The air changed again. Emma went still. Estate issues? Mom's head snapped toward him. Daniel realized it too late. I reached into my purse and touched the blue folder, but I did not take it out yet. Emma looked at me. What estate issues? I kept my voice low. The lake house, her brow tightened. What about the lake house? Dad put it in a trust for both of us. Your marriage changes some paperwork. Margaret emailed me because Daniel and Mom asked about release forms after the wedding. Emma looked at Mom. Mom said quickly it was routine. Just simplifying things. Did you ask me to sign something? After the honeymoon, maybe. Nothing urgent. Daniel said, it's inefficient to keep emotional property tied up indefinitely. Emotional property. Emma flinched. So did I. That was Dad's porch, his dish towel, his root beer, his cufflinks. Emma's sweatshirt on the dock. My childhood folded into uneven steps and summer dust. I took out the trust summary then, not dramatically. Just a few folded pages and Margaret's card. Emma, I said, you don't have to decide anything today. You just need to know what it is before anyone asks you to sign. She took the papers. Her eyes moved over the first page. Mom tried one more time. Cynthia has always made these things more complicated than they need to be. Emma looked up. No, she said. You made my wedding day a place where my sister had to sit outside holding Dad's letter. Mom's face changed. For once, she had no clean sentence ready. Inside, the music stopped. Someone must have noticed the bride was missing. The silence from the room behind Emma felt larger than the music had. The planner appeared at the doorway. Emma, do you need a few minutes? Emma looked at me. Then at the bouquet on the ground. Then at Mom. Yes, she said. And I need my sister inside, Mom whispered. Emma, think about how this looks. Emma bent down, picked up the bouquet, and held it against her dress. I am, she turned to me. Come in, I did not move right away. After everything, the invitation felt almost too simple to trust. Emma saw that. Her voice softened. Please, Cyn. So I stepped through the side door. Not the front, the side. Inside, the hallway smelled like flowers, hairspray, and warm lighting. Emma took one cufflink from the pouch and wrapped it into the ribbon around her bouquet with shaking fingers. The other she placed back in my palm. Hold this one, she said. I closed my hand around it. The ceremony started late. Not ruined. Late. People whispered, of course. They always do. Mom sat in the front row with her hands folded so tightly, her knuckles looked white. Daniel stared straight ahead. I stood beside Emma because she asked me to. Not as maid of honor. Not with a title anyone had printed in a program. Just beside her. When she walked down the aisle, she held the bouquet with Dad's cufflink tied into the ribbon. And for the first time that day, I did not feel like I had brought him too late. After the ceremony, there were no big speeches about what happened. Emma did not humiliate Mom in front of everyone. I did not either. That would have made the day about punishment, and neither of us had the energy for that. But when Daniel brought up a few quick signatures before the reception dinner, Emma did not even sit down. No, she said. He blinked. Emma, this is not. No, she repeated. Anything about the lake house goes through Margaret, with Cynthia there. After I read everything, Mom said, you're making this harder. Emma looked at her. Maybe it should have been harder to hide. That was all. No yelling, no collapse. Just one door closing that Mom had not been allowed to control. Later, after the food, after the photographs that had to be rearranged, after guests stopped looking at us quite so often, Emma and I stepped outside through the same side door. The air had cooled, the parking lot lights had come on. The stone border where I had sat looked smaller now. Emma stood beside me in her dress, holding the letter against her chest. I'm sorry, she said. I looked at the pavement. You didn't know. I let not knowing be easy. That was the first thing she said that actually reached the older wound. I did not tell her it was fine. It was not, but I nodded. After a while, she said, after the honeymoon, I want to go to the lake house. I looked at her. Not to sell it, she said quickly. Just to remember it correctly, that was when I finally cried. Not much, just enough that I had to turn my face away. The next morning, I drove home with my dress folded badly in the back seat and the empty velvet pouch on the passenger seat. It looked smaller without the letter, lighter. For years, I had thought the pouch was something I was carrying. But maybe it had been carrying me too. Mom never gave me the apology people want at the end of stories like this. Daniel did not suddenly become kind. The family did not heal in one clean afternoon, but Emma knew. She knew I had come. She knew Dad had remembered her. She knew the lake house was not just an asset waiting for a signature. And I knew, finally, that I was not imagining the door being closed. I had simply stopped being the only one who saw it. I came prepared to watch from outside. I left with one cufflink in my hand, an empty pouch beside me, and the strange quiet of a promise finally delivered. Love does not always come through the front entrance. Sometimes, when the right person finally looks for you, it opens a side door,